The sharp scent of antiseptic stabbed at my nostrils. My eyelids were leaden, impossible to lift. A dull roar filled my ears, pierced by a voice trying so desperately to sound sweet it was sickening. Ethan, you know Leo's condition is critical. It's end-stage kidney failure. If he doesn't find a donor soon, he'll... You've always been so kind, Ethan. You'd be willing to help him, wouldn't you? I forced my eyes open. The ceiling was a sterile, unforgiving white, the fluorescent lights overhead making my head spin. My vision slowly came into focus. Two people stood by my hospital bed. A woman in a pristine white dress, her long hair falling over her shoulders. Her brows were knitted in a carefully constructed expression of sorrow and entitlement. She was turned slightly, her arm linked with the man beside her. The man she was holding onto was pale, the kind of manufactured sickliness that takes effort to maintain. His lips were bloodless, his eyelids heavy, projecting a fragile, the world owes me everything vibe. He was looking at the bed, at me, with a pathetic cocktail of gratitude and guilt. A spike of pain shot through my skull as a tidal wave of fragmented information crashed into my brain. Ethan Hayes, the tragic protagonist. The woman was Chloe Vance, the story's heroine. The walking corpse she was clinging to was her brother, Leo Vance, the master manipulator. And I was now Ethan Hayes, the cast-off son, the walking blood bank and organ donor for the woman he loved, the fool who was framed, betrayed, and left to die penniless on the street. A first-class chump. This scene, I remembered, was a classic. The one where the heroine brings her darling brother to the hospital to pressure the hero, who has just survived a car crash, into donating a kidney. The suffocating despair of the original Ethan hadn't faded yet, and it mixed with my own volcanic temper, shooting straight to the top of my skull. Kind? So being kind meant I deserved to be emotionally blackmailed by these two parasites? To be bled dry until there was nothing left? As if on cue from Chloe, Leo took a half-step forward, his voice a weak, choked whisper. Ethan, I know this is a huge thing to ask, but I really want to live. Chloe can't lose me. Please. As he spoke, he even managed a few theatrical coughs, his eyes turning red on command. Chloe immediately clutched him tighter, her gaze on me now tinged with reproach. Ethan, look at him. He's so sick. Can't you find it in your heart? It's just one kidney. You won't die. You've always been the most, huh? A single cold laugh cut her off. Chloe and Leo both froze, clearly not expecting that reaction. I slowly lifted my left hand, the one with the 4-line, and stared at the clear tube, my eyes devoid of warmth. Then, as they watched in stunned silence, I ripped the needle clean out of my hand. The motion was sharp, brutal. A bead of blood instantly welled up from the puncture mark, tracing a startling red path down my skin. I threw off the thin white blanket, my bare feet hitting the freezing linoleum floor as I swung out of bed. The weakness from the crash was still there, but a raw, furious energy held me upright. I walked the few steps to where the two of them were still clinging to each other. Leo seemed terrified by my sudden advance, instinctively shrinking behind Chloe, his pitiful expression intensifying. Ethan, you... Smack! I channeled every ounce of strength I had into a backhanded slap that cracked across Leo's pale face. The sound was crisp, sharp, and echoed in the silent room. Leo's head snapped to the side. He was completely stunned, a bright red handprint already blooming on his cheek. He cupped his face, his eyes wide with disbelief, as if he'd just seen a ghost. Chloe was speechless, her mouth hanging open, unable to form a single word. The room was dead quiet. I shook my stinging hand and pointed a trembling finger at the still-dazed Leo, my voice cold enough to chip ice. He's about to die. What does he need a kidney for? Worried the trip to hell won't be heavy enough. Needs an extra organ to weigh him down. Before they could react, I turned on Chloe, my tone dripping with scorn. And you love him so much, can't bear for him to go alone. Fine. A match made in hell for two grade A scumbags. I twisted my lips into a feral grin, my voice rising to a shout. Now, right now, get the hell down to City Hall and get married. I was practically roaring. I'll even pay for the damn funeral. A double-wide plot, cemented shut, so you two can be together for all eternity and stop poisoning the rest of the world. The color drained from Chloe's face. She stared at me, as if for the first time, her lips trembling as she stammered. Ethan, you were never like this. Like this? The old Ethan was already dead, devoured by you two until there was nothing left but bones. I shot my hand out and violently swiped the rolling bedside table, sending the water glass, pills, and chart flying. Crash, clatter, smash. The metal frame hit the tile with a deafening clang. The glass shattered, sending pills, water, and shards skittering across the floor. It was a complete mess. The noise startled people outside. I could faintly hear a nurse's cry and the sound of running feet. I stood in the center of the chaos, barefoot, my hand dripping blood, my chest heaving. My eyes were like poisoned daggers, pinned on Chloe's ashen face. I used to let you walk all over me. I bit out, each word laced with a bone-deep chill. And you really started to think you were something special, didn't you? Get out. Chloe's carefully made-up face was now as white as a freshly painted wall, her lips trembling uncontrollably. Shock and a flicker of insulted fury warred in her eyes. She probably never imagined that one day I would literally flip a table on her. Leo was in even worse shape, cowering behind her and clutching his face. His carefully cultivated frailness now looked utterly ridiculous, like a sick rooster that had just had its tail stepped on, capable only of shivering. Ethan Hayes, are you insane? Chloe finally found her voice. It was a shrill, incredulous shriek. How could you hit Leo? And throw things? Do you have any idea what you're saying? I said, go get married, then get buried together. I repeated, articulating every single word. I even took a step forward, my bare feet crunching on the broken glass, the sound grating on the nerves. Don't you understand English? Need me to dumb it down for you? Leo flinched so hard he nearly pulled Chloe over. Just then, the door was thrown open. What's going on? What happened? A young nurse rushed in, saw the wreckage on the floor, and the three of us locked in a standoff, and gasped, covering her mouth. Mr. Hayes, why are you out of bed? Your hand is bleeding. A doctor followed her in, his expression hardening. Quick, get his wound treated. What is going on here? Their arrival seemed to give Chloe an anchor. She slipped into drama queen mode instantly, her eyes welling up as she pointed at me, her voice a pathetic, wounded cry. Doctor, nurse, you have to help him. I think the crash did something to his brain. He just went crazy. He started hitting people, smashing things. I came here to see him out of the goodness of my heart, and this is how he treats my brother. Leo perfectly timed his reveal, showing them the swollen side of his face, sniffling, his eyes wide and fearful. He looked like the poster child for victimhood. Damn, with acting skills like that, it was a crime they weren't up for an Oscar. The doctor frowned, looking from my bleeding hand to the tragic pair, his tone reproachful. Mr. Hayes, you just had surgery. You can't get this agitated. Why would you pull out your own for? What if it gets infected? The nurse was already approaching with antiseptic wipes and gauze. I ignored the doctor, my eyes still locked on Chloe as I waved the nurse away. Goodness of your heart, I scoffed. The sound was quiet, but it carried through the room. Bringing your beloved brother to my bedside right after a car accident to pressure me into donating a kidney. You call that kindness? The doctor and nurse froze, their eyes flicking uncertainly toward Chloe and Leo. Donating a kidney? That was no small thing. Chloe's face turned an even uglier shade. She rushed to defend herself. No, I wasn't pressuring you. We were discussing it. Leo is dying. I was just begging you to save him. Ethan, how can you think I'm so malicious? Begging. I raised an eyebrow. Your tone sounded more like a demand. It's just one kidney, you won't die. Aren't those your exact words? You wanted to play the recording for the doctor and nurse. There was no recording, but I was betting on her guilty conscience. Sure enough, a flicker of panic crossed Chloe's eyes. Her bravado crumbled, her lips moved, but no sound came out. Seeing his sister falter, Leo jumped in, trying to muddy the waters. Ethan, don't blame Chloe, it's all my fault. I'm the one who got sick. I'll stop treatment. I don't want it anymore. He started coughing again, looking like he might faint at any moment. If it were the old Ethan, he might have actually felt sorry for him. Too bad for them, it was me. Oh, so now you don't want treatment? I nodded, my voice flat. Fine, good for you. Then what are you still doing here? Waiting for me to call the funeral home and get you an early bird discount. You. Chloe was trembling with rage, pointing at me. Ethan Hayes, you're being completely unreasonable. You're cold-blooded. An animal. Takes one to know one, I shot back. One of you is an expert at emotional blackmail. The other is a professional victim. You're perfect for each other. The doctor had pieced enough together to get the gist. His face darkened, and he addressed Chloe and Leo in a stern voice. The patient needs to rest and recover. Please leave the room immediately. Organ donation has strict procedures and ethical guidelines. It is not something you can coerce someone into privately. Doctor, Chloe tried to argue. Please leave, the doctor repeated, his tone firm as he stepped aside to clear a path to the door. The young nurse, emboldened, stood in front of me. She looked a little scared, but she managed to keep her expression firm. You need to go now. Chloe saw the writing on the wall. She wasn't getting what she wanted today. She'd only made a mess of things. She shot me a look of pure hatred, so venomous it was almost tangible. "Ethan Hayes, you just wait," she spat, delivering the tired, unoriginal threat before helping the still-coughing Leo out of the room in a miserable retreat. The door clicked shut, sealing off the two nauseating figures. Finally, some peace and quiet. The doctor sighed and turned back to me, his tone much softer. "Mr. Hayes, let me take care of that wound. Please try to calm down. Nothing is more important than your health." I looked at the mess on the floor, at the blood already starting to dry on my hand. The explosive rage began to recede, replaced by an ice-cold clarity. The tragic hero? Huh. Whoever wanted that role could have it. Now that I was here, this story was going to follow my rules. "Thank you, doctor," I said, holding out my hand. My voice was calm. "Also, could you do me a favor and call the police?" The doctor and nurse both froze. "The police?" "Yes." I nodded, my expression flat. "The gentleman who was just in here, Leo Vance, may be guilty of attempted coercion and emotional distress. I'd like to reserve the right to press charges. The broken glass, my injury. It's all evidence." The doctor stared, and the nurse's eyes widened. They had probably never seen someone go straight from a screaming match to filing a police report. I smirked. Suffer in silence? Bottle it all up? That was the old Ethan. Now, when someone wronged me, the new protocol was simple. Flip the table, call the cops, and send them on their way. Full service. The doctor and nurse, clearly stunned by this move, just looked at each other, unsure what to do next. "Mr. Hayes," the doctor began, choosing his words carefully, trying to de-escalate. This is a personal matter, isn't it? Calling the police seems a bit extreme. Besides, that young man didn't look well. He's not well, so I should just let him pressure me into giving him a kidney? I cut him off, my voice even but my eyes turning cold. He's weak, so he's right. Doctor, you save lives. You of all people should know that organ transplantation isn't a game. It's not a tool for emotional blackmail. If they can come here and pressure me today, they can do it to someone else tomorrow. Do you think that's acceptable? The doctor was speechless, a flush rising on his cheeks. The young nurse's eyes, however, lit up with a spark of understanding. "Call the police," I repeated, my tone leaving no room for argument. Even if they don't press charges, those two need to learn that not everyone is going to put up with their act. And it'll be good to have a record, in case they try to pull something later, claiming I'm mentally unstable and need their care. In the original story, that pair of vultures used that Ethan is emotionally unstable and needs a conservator excuse to control him and plunder his assets. I had to cut that path off at the knees. The doctor seemed to understand. He sighed and nodded at the nurse. "Sarah, call security. And call the police." The nurse nodded and hurried out. The doctor started cleaning the wound on my hand. The sting of the alcohol was sharp, but I didn't even flinch. Compared to the suffocating despair the original Ethan had endured, this was nothing. A paper cut. Security arrived first. Their expressions were a mixture of surprise and professional boredom as they took in the trashed room and heard the doctor's brief explanation. A few minutes later, two uniformed police officers walked in. "Who called this in? What's going on?" The older officer asked, his eyes scanning the room with a practiced air. I didn't wait for the doctor to find the right words. I spoke clearly and calmly. I did. Two individuals, Chloe and Leo Vance, entered my room without my consent and engaged in verbal coercion and psychological harassment in an attempt to force me into a non-consensual organ donation. A dispute occurred, and in self-defense, I knocked over the bedside table, injuring my hand. They posed a threat to my physical safety and mental well-being. I want to file a report and reserve the right to press charges. I made sure to emphasize the words self-defense, knocked over, and non-consensual. The officer took notes, then looked to the doctor for confirmation. The doctor nodded. That's essentially what happened. The two visitors did bring up a kidney donation, and their tone was inappropriate. The patient just survived a car crash. His physical and mental state are fragile, and he became agitated after being provoked. After taking down Chloe's and Leo's information, everything I could remember from the original story, the officer closed his notebook. We'll contact them to verify the situation and issue a formal warning. As for your injury, Mr. Hayes, I'll have it taken care of, I said coolly, as long as the report is on file. The officers said a few more words and left with the security guard. The nurse reinserted my four, the room was cleaned up, and they finally left me in peace. The room was silent at last. I stared at the white ceiling, trying to piece together the tangled mess of this story. The original Ethan Hayes was a classic tragedy. The black sheep of his family, unloved by his parents, with a scheming illegitimate half-brother constantly plotting against him. He built a small company from the ground up, only to have his supposed fiancée, Chloe, and his best friend, Leo, gutted from the inside out. In the end, he was left with nothing and no one, dying in some dark alley on a rainy day, his body not found for days. And Chloe and Leo? They took his money, danced on his grave, and lived happily ever after as a celebrated, devoted sibling pair. To hell with that. Now that I was here, that plot was dead on arrival. Tragic romance? Redemption arc? Forget it. I was gonna burn the whole damn thing to the ground and use the ashes to pave their road to hell. First, I needed to get out of this hospital. In the story, Chloe and Leo eventually bribed staff here to mess with Ethan's medication, making him weaker and more confused. Second, I needed money. Power. The small company he founded was probably on life support, but I had to take it back. I also remembered his mother had left him a trust fund. The family had it locked down, but he should be able to access it now that he was of age. I had to get it. And third, the most important part, revenge. It's a dish best served cold, and I was going to serve it up with interest. Chloe, Leo, and the whole cold-blooded Hayes clan. Every single one of them was on the list. No one was getting away. As I was plotting, my phone buzzed. The caller ID read, Chloe. Huh, she had the nerve to call? I smirked and answered, saying nothing. Her voice, tight with a mixture of anger and self-pity, came through the line, laced with fake tears. Her performance was still on point. Ethan Hayes, you actually called the cops. How would you do that to me? The police just called me and Leo. Do you have any idea how that looks? You scared Leo half to death. Oh, I said, and she was clearly thrown by my indifference. She paused, then her voice grew shrill. And Ethan Hayes, do you have a conscience? I was just trying to save Leo's life. I was emotional. I might have said some things I didn't mean, but did you have to go that far? You were never like this. You were always so kind. Stop. I cut off her monologue. Chloe, if you're not going to use your ears, maybe you should donate those too. I'll say it one last time. Whether your precious brother lives or dies has absolutely nothing to do with me. If you want to give him a kidney, be my guest. I'll even applaud your courage. If not, then get out of my sight and let him die in peace. Stop bothering me. You bastard. She finally dropped the act, her voice cracking with pure rage. Ethan Hayes, don't you dare get cocky. You think you're still the great Ethan Hayes, heir to the family fortune? Your family disowned you. You're a nobody now, a broke loser. Who else is going to want you but me? Whether I'm a loser or not depends on whether the person I'm talking to is human, I said, my voice lazy. As for who wants me, don't you worry your pretty little head about it. You should be more concerned about your darling Leo. After all, I drew out the words, my tone dripping with malice. End-stage renal disease waits for no one. Time's ticking. You two should hurry up, get your affairs in order, pick out a nice plot. Don't leave any regrets. Ethan Hayes, go to hell, she shrieked, then slammed the phone down. The world was quiet again. I tossed the phone aside and looked out the window at the darkening sky, a cold smirk playing on my lips. She couldn't handle that? This was just the opening act. The real show was just getting started. The dial tone hummed in my ear for a moment before fading, leaving the room silent except for the soft beep of a heart monitor. Outside, the sky had turned a deep indigo, and the city's neon lights began to flicker to life, a cold, artificial galaxy. I leaned back against the pillows. The wound on my hand had been redressed, and the cool sting of antiseptic ointment was a sharp, grounding sensation. It helped me think. Chloe's final, "Fury is go to hell" was still ringing in my ears. In the original story, she'd hurled similar curses at Ethan countless times, and he had always just taken it, swallowing the daggers of her words until they rotted him from the inside out, corroding his spirit and dignity. Idiot. I snorted and shifted my body. The dull ache from the car crash still lingered in my bones, but this body had a decent foundation. I needed to recover. Fast. Lying around waiting to die wasn't my style. Just as I was mapping out my next move, there was a soft knock on the door. Come in, I said, my voice flat. The door opened to reveal a middle-aged man in a tailored gray suit and wire-rimmed glasses. He carried a briefcase, and his serious expression was tinged with a careful deference. Mr. Hayes, he said with a slight bow. I heard you were awake. I came as quickly as I could. How are you feeling? I sized him up. Marcus Thorne, the original Ethan's personal lawyer. One of the few people who was loyal to him, though that loyalty was strictly professional. In the story, he tried to warn Ethan about Chloe and Leo, but the love-struck fool hadn't listened. Later, the Hayes family had arranged for Marcus to be transferred away. Not dead yet, I said succinctly. What is it? Marcus seemed a bit taken aback by my coldness, but quickly recovered. He pulled a file from his briefcase. There are some urgent documents regarding your company, Aperture Innovations, that require your signature. Also, the trust fund your mother left you. You'll be of age to access it next month. There's some preliminary paperwork we need to prepare. Aperture Innovations, a name the original Ethan had chosen to impress Chloe. It was a small tech startup, but it was his life's work, and the primary asset Chloe and Leo had systematically hollowed out. The trust fund. I'd forgotten about that. Ethan's mother had come from a wealthy family and had set it up to protect him, but the Hayes clan had kept it under their control for years, citing safekeeping. I took the file, but didn't open it, tapping my fingers on the cover. Marcus. Yes, sir. I need you to do a few things for me. I looked up at him, my gaze cold. First, get a realtor on the phone immediately. I want to sell my condo. Second, I want a full audit of Aperture's books and a breakdown of the current share structure. I want to see every last detail. Third, you will personally handle the trust fund. Give me that money as fast as possible and transfer it to a new account. I'll provide the details. Marcus was stunned, his eyes widening behind his glasses. Mr. Hayes, you're selling your home? And the company's finances are currently being managed by Ms. Vance. Marcus, I interrupted, my voice low but carrying an undeniable weight. Who signs your checks? He swallowed. You do, sir. Then do as I say. I tossed the file back to him. Chloe Vance is no longer the acting manager of the company, effective immediately. Freeze any and all matters that require her approval. They will wait for me. But Marcus looked hesitant. Ms. Vance might not take that well. If she has a problem, she can come to me directly, I said with a smirk. Or she can call the police. I just did, so I don't mind doing it again. Marcus had clearly heard about the incident that afternoon. His expression shifted, and he finally lowered his head. I understand, Mr. Hayes. I'll get on it right away. Be quick about it, I stressed. I'm in a hurry. Yes, sir. Marcus gathered the documents. He paused at the door. Mr. Hayes, your health. The doctor recommended a period of rest and recovery. Rest? I snorted. If I rest any longer, I'm going to be eaten alive with not even the bones left to show for it. Marcus said no more. He bowed and left. I'll report back as soon as there's any progress. Once he was gone, the room was silent again. Sell the condo, audit the company, claim the trust fund. This was just step one. I had to cut off Chloe and Leo's access and regain financial control. Next, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text message from an unsaved number. Mr. Hayes, I have a preliminary report on that matter you asked me to look into. There's something strange about Leo Vance's medical records. I stared at the message, my pupils constricting. The original Ethan had hired a private investigator to look into Leo. That was an unexpected bonus. Tell me. I typed back. A few seconds later, an encrypted file arrived. I opened it and scanned the contents. The more I read, the colder my smile became. End-stage renal disease? Needing a kidney transplant? The official medical file was perfect with all the requisite lab reports and charts. But this private investigation revealed that over the past 6 months, Leo had visited several different private clinics for a variety of symptoms. But the prescriptions he received were all subtle. More importantly, an anomaly in one of his blood tests from a private clinic directly contradicted the timeline presented in his terminal diagnosis. In other words, the illness was for the most part a scam. Or, at the very least, it was nowhere near as severe as he was letting on. No wonder that in the original story, every time they got close to a donor match or a critical decision point, Leo would coincidentally have some complication that delayed the transplant, dragging things out until the original Ethan was completely broken. So that was their game. Use a phantom illness to hold Chloe's sympathy hostage, and then use Chloe to bleed Ethan Hayes dry of everything he had. A brilliant dirty con. I saved the file and deleted the message history. Outside, the night was as black as ink. Chloe Vance, Leo Vance. You two love to act. Fine, I'll put on a show with you. Let's see who gets written out of the script first. For the next 2 days, my hospital room became a war room. Marcus's efficiency was surprisingly high. Perhaps my scorched earth approach of calling the police, followed by a series of decisive commands, had made him realize his once indecisive employer had a new spine. He was no longer someone to be trifled with. The condo was listed below market value with one condition: all cash, fastest possible closing. The phone was ringing off the hook, and Marcus was vetting the buyers. The company's financial records were sent over, a digital copy on a new tablet I'd had delivered. I'd told Marcus to get rid of my old phone and tablet. No telling what Chloe or Leo might have installed on them. The numbers made my blood boil. Countless vague expenses were filed under public relations and business development. The individual amounts were small, but they were frequent, and the money trail consistently led to high-end restaurants, luxury boutiques, and even art galleries. That parasite Leo apparently fancied himself an artist. Several larger transactions were funneled to newly formed shell corporations with no discernible business operations. The names on the paperwork were nobodies, but if you dug deep enough, you could always find a connection back to Leo. This was blatant, systematic embezzlement, and that fool Chloe had probably never even glanced at the books. As long as Leo fluttered his innocent eyes and murmured something about securing the company's future, she would sign off on anything. The trust fund was proving trickier. The Hayes family had, as expected, thrown up roadblocks, but Marcus assured me it was manageable. He was already initiating legal action and expected the first installment of funds to be available within a week. Mr. Hayes, Marcus reported over the phone, his voice more cautious than before. Ms. Vance came to the office today. She tried to authorize a wire transfer, but accounting refused, as per your instructions. She was very emotional. She made quite a scene. Tell her to get lost, I said, not looking up from a spreadsheet on my tablet, and inform security that if she sets foot in the building again, they're to call the police immediately. Isn't that a bit? Marcus hesitated. Do it. Yes, sir. I had just hung up with Marcus when the phone rang again. This time, the name flashing on the screen was Father. I stared at the word. A wave of the original Ethan's repressed emotions, a toxic mix of fear and longing, surged up before I ruthlessly pushed it back down. Harrison Hayes, the patriarch of the Hayes family, a cold, selfish bastard who valued profit above all else. In his eyes, the original Ethan was a disobedient, worthless pawn who only ever brought him shame. I let the phone ring 7 or 8 times before I slowly answered, saying nothing. Ethan, the voice on the other end was deep and cold, heavy with the authority of a man used to being obeyed. What the hell are you playing at now? Chloe just called me, cried her eyes out, saying you had the police called on her, that you threw her out of her own office. Where are your manners? So she'd run tattling to daddy. Was she 3 years old? I let out a short, humorless laugh. Mr. Hayes, I didn't realize the CEO of Hayes Corp had time to meddle in the petty squabbles of children. There was a stunned silence on the other end. He clearly hadn't expected this tone. The old Ethan would have been stammering or silent, never daring to talk back with such an edge. Insolent. Harrison's voice boomed, sharp with anger. What do you mean petty squabbles? Chloe is your fiancée. She was running herself ragged, taking care of you and the company while you were in the hospital, and this is how you treat her? And what's this about a Leo Vance? I hear you assaulted him over some outsider. Running herself ragged, emptying my company's accounts, you mean? Worried about how to get my kidney into her brother, my rival for her affections. My voice was laced with exaggerated surprise. She's a real gem, that fiancée of mine. If you like her so much, why don't you marry her? You're still in your prime. I wouldn't mind a new stepmother. You little bastard. I could hear him slam something on his desk, the sound cracking through the receiver. How dare you speak to me like that? I think that car crash really did knock your brain loose. You will call Chloe and apologize immediately, and you will reinstate her at the company. You just focus on getting better. There it was. The real reason for his call. He couldn't bear to lose Chloe, his little puppet for controlling me and my company. Mr. Hayes, my voice turned cold. My company, my rules. My kidney, my rules. As for Chloe Vance, who the hell is she? She's not worthy of an apology from me. You've lost your mind. Harrison was practically sputtering with rage. What are you without the Hayes name? You think that pathetic little company of yours can survive? You're nothing without this family. You think I can't have you thrown out of that hospital and onto the street tomorrow? The Hayes family? I laughed softly. Mr. Hayes, have you forgotten? I've been lying in this hospital bed for 3 days after a car crash. Besides this delightful phone call, has anyone from the great Hayes family even bothered to check if I was dead? Go ahead. Try it. Throw me out on the street. My tone shifted, becoming dark and reckless. The voice of a man with nothing left to lose. It will be a great opportunity for the media to see how the celebrated chairman of Hayes Corp drives his own son, fresh from a near-fatal accident, to his ruin. While we're at it, I can tell them all about the touching love story between my dear fiancée and her brother, and how the Hayes family graciously supported her attempts to coerce me into donating a kidney. The line went dead silent. All I could hear was Harrison's ragged breathing, a testament to his fury. He had probably never imagined his perpetually submissive son would become so sharp-tongued, so utterly defiant. Public opinion. Scandal. Those were the things men like Harrison Hayes feared most. After a long moment, he finally squeezed out the words through clenched teeth. Are you threatening me? I am, I admitted freely. So what? The times have changed, Mr. Hayes. The man with nothing has nothing to lose. All I have left is this miserable life. If you want to play, I'll play. Let's see who gives in first. Another suffocating silence. Fine. Just fine. Harrison's voice was as cold as ice. Ethan Hayes, you've grown wings. I'd like to see just how high you can fly without the Hayes family to back you up. He slammed the phone down. Listening to the dial tone, I tossed the phone onto the bedside table. So we'd finally burned that bridge. Good. It saved me the trouble of pretending anymore. I threw back the covers and, ignoring the dull ache in my muscles, moved to the window. Below, the city was a river of traffic and a constellation of lights. This world was glittering and cruel. The Hayes family, Chloe, Leo, all the people who thought I was a pushover. They could all just wait. The day after my blow-up with Harrison, I had an unexpected visitor. I was on my tablet cross-referencing a list of suspicious accounts Marcus had just sent over when a knock came at the door, immediately followed by the door swinging open. I looked up. A young man in a flashy pink shirt, his hair slicked back with too much product, was leaning against the doorframe, a smirk playing on his lips. He was dangling a fruit basket from his fingers. Caleb Hayes, my father's illegitimate son, my so-called brother, and the current golden boy of the Hayes family. In the original story, he was a major antagonist, constantly sabotaging Ethan, and he had a hand in the eventual takeover of Aperture Innovations. Well, big brother. Not dead yet. His first words were poison. His eyes swept the room, landing on the bandage on my hand, and his smirk widened. Guess the car crash wasn't that bad after all. Still kicking, I see. Well enough to talk back to Dad and send Chloe Vance into a rage. I put the tablet aside and looked at him, my expression unreadable. Here to gloat. Of course not. Caleb sauntered in, tossing the fruit basket onto the bedside table. He pulled a chair over, sat on it backwards, and rested his chin on the backrest. I'm here because I'm concerned about you, bro. I heard you went full-on beast mode. Punched that sickly loser Leo, and even called the cops on Chloe? Damn. He said damn, with admiration, but his eyes were shining with undisguised schadenfreude. Dad was throwing a fit at home yesterday. Smashed a vintage tea set. He leaned in, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. Big brother, did you really hit your head? Talking to him like that. What? I raised an eyebrow. Are you jealous? Caleb froze for a second, then scoffed. Jealous of you? Hell no. I'm just afraid you'll die too quickly. Then the show would be over. He glanced around the sterile room. But you're tougher than I thought. What? You finally see that manipulative bitch for who she really is. I didn't answer, waiting for him to get to the point. He wasn't here just to spectate. As expected, he let out a dramatic sigh. You know, it's really pathetic when you think about it, big brother. Scammed by your girl, betrayed by her brother, and now you're kicked out of the family. Tell you what, why don't you beg me? I'll go home, put in a good word for you with Dad. We're brothers, after all. Brothers? I said, as if it were the funniest joke I'd ever heard. When your mother was climbing into my father's bed, did she forget to teach you the meaning of that word? The smile vanished from Caleb's face. His eyes flashed with malice for a split second before he slipped his cynical mask back on. His voice, however, was a few degrees colder. Fine. Play tough. Let's see how long you last. Without the Hayes family, you're nothing. And Chloe and Leo aren't going to let you off the hook either. He stood up, adjusting his obnoxious shirt. All right, I almost forgot to tell you. It looks like Leo found a new potential kidney donor. The match is supposed to be excellent. So your precious Chloe won't be needing your kidney anymore. Bet that's a relief, huh? A new donor? My mind raced, but I kept my face a blank slate. Well, good for him. When's the surgery? I'll be sure to send a wreath. Caleb stared at me for a few seconds, trying to read my expression, but failed. He pouted, clearly bored. Just you wait. You'll be crying soon enough. He kicked the chair he'd been sitting on and swaggered out. As the door closed, the indifferent mask fell from my face. A new donor? Leo's medical records were fake. What the hell was he talking about? This was either a smokescreen designed to make me lower my guard, or it was part of a different scheme entirely. I immediately picked up my phone and called Marcus. Marcus, I need you to look into two things for me. First, give me everything you can on Leo Vance's recent medical activity, especially anything related to a donor match or scheduled surgery. Use any means necessary. Second, I want to know what Caleb Hayes has been up to. Has he been in contact with Chloe or Leo? Right away, Mr. Hayes, Marcus replied. He paused. Sir, the buyer for your condo is confirmed. They're offering all cash. The price is acceptable, and we can close whenever you're ready. The first payment from the trust fund should be in your designated account by tomorrow. Excellent. My eyes narrowed. Schedule the closing for tomorrow afternoon. And as soon as that money hits, I want you to start buying up shares of Aperture Innovations. Anonymously. Buy as much as you can get your hands on. Thanks to the mismanagement and the bad press surrounding me, Aperture stock had hit rock bottom. Now was the time to buy it all back for pennies on the dollar. Chloe, Leo, and Caleb, you all want to play? Fine. I'll raise the stakes. Let's see who's left standing at the end. The next afternoon, sunlight sliced through the blinds, striping the hospital room floor with light and shadow. Marcus was efficient. The condo sale was done, contracts digitally signed, funds transferred. The first installment from the trust fund had also quietly landed in the offshore account only I knew about. On my tablet, the stock market app silently refreshed. Aperture Innovation stock was still bleeding red, a lush field of failing investments. And my anonymously controlled shell companies were slowly, quietly, soaking up the shares being dumped in the panic. I had to move slowly, carefully, so as not to spook the market. There was something satisfying about being the unseen predator, slowly tightening the net. A knock came at the door. This time, it was a nurse with a medical card. Time to change your dressing, Mr. Hayes. Her voice was soft, and her movements were practiced as she unwrapped the gauze from my hand. The wound was healing, but it still looked raw. She carefully disinfected the area, applied ointment, and rebandaged it. She barely looked at me the whole time. When she was done, she hesitated, then pulled a fancy fruit basket from the bottom shelf of her cart and placed it on the bedside table. Her voice was even quieter now. Mr. Hayes, this was left here by a gentleman yesterday. I noticed you haven't touched it. Would you like me to dispose of it? It was the one Caleb had brought. Throw it out, I said without looking up. Of course. The nurse quickly picked up the basket, as if it were contaminated, and walked toward the trash can by the door. Just then, the door was slammed open from the outside. Bang! It hit the wall with such force that it bounced back, the sound echoing in the room. The poor nurse nearly dropped the basket in fright. I glanced up. Chloe Vance stood in the doorway, her chest heaving, her face flushed not with pallor, but with a blotchy, furious red. She wasn't wearing her signature white dress today. Instead, she was in a Chanel suit, her hair perfectly styled, though a few strands had come loose. The rage in her eyes was practically shooting flames, and it was aimed directly at me. Behind her, of course, was the ever-present shadow, Leo, still playing the part of the frail victim, his face pale, his eyes darting around nervously. But when his gaze met mine, I saw a flicker of something else behind the fear, a flash of vindictive triumph. Ethan Hayes. Chloe practically spat my name, each syllable a venomous dart. The nurse turned white, clutching the fruit basket, frozen in place. You can go, I told her quietly. She looked immensely relieved, scurrying past Chloe with her head down. She even gently pulled the door partially closed behind her. Not that it would do much good. She probably wouldn't go far. Now it was just the three of us. Ethan Hayes, what the hell is your problem? Chloe marched up to my bed, her heels clicking angrily on the floor, her finger jabbing the air inches from my face. You had Marcus freeze the company accounts? You revoked my access. Who gave you the right? That's my company. Your company? I leaned back against the pillows, not even bothering to sit up straight. Chloe, if you're not done dreaming, you should go back to sleep. Do I need to show you the business license? Remind you whose name is on it? You. She was shaking with rage. I put my heart and soul into that company. I was there with you, building it from the ground up, and now you just turn on me like this? Ethan Hayes, are you even human? Heart and soul. I scoffed. You mean the heart and soul you put into funneling company money to that dying leech next to you? On cue, Leo coughed weakly and stepped forward, gently taking Chloe's arm. His voice was a soft, placating murmur. Chloe, don't. Ethan's still recovering. He probably just misunderstood something. Misunderstood. Chloe seized on the word, her voice rising to a shriek. What right does he have to misunderstand anything? You're so sick, Leo, and not only does he refuse to help, he hits you, he calls the cops on us. And now he's cutting off the company's funds. He's doing this on purpose. He wants you to die. Ethan, how can your heart be so black? Leo looked at me, his eyes full of disappointment and sorrow. Ethan, I know you resent me for taking Chloe away from you, but this is a matter of life and death. How could you let your personal feelings? How could you just stand by and watch someone die? He was laying it on thick, his eyes turning red again. The old Ethan would have been disgusted, speechless, and utterly defeated by this performance. Too bad. I slowly threw back the blanket, my movements much surer this time. 2 days of rest had brought back some of my strength. I stood barefoot on the floor, slightly taller than Chloe in her heels, and watched their little duet with a calm, detached expression. Are you done? I asked. My placid demeanor seemed to throw Chloe off. Her momentum faltered. Leo watched me warily, as if expecting another slap. You keep talking about life and death. Have you found a new donor? I asked, my tone flat. Chloe immediately pounced, as if she'd caught me in a trap. Of course we have. And if you hadn't frozen the funds, the money for the surgery would have already been. Oh, I cut her off, my questions coming like rapid-fire shots, my eyes sharp. Which hospital? Who's the surgeon? What's the compatibility match? I stared her down. Where's the medical file? The surgical plan? Show them to me. Chloe froze, her eyes darting away. She stammered, That's Leo's private medical information. Why should I show you? Private? I laughed. It wasn't private when you were trying to pressure me into donating a kidney, was it? But now that I asked for a little proof, it's a national secret. I turned to Leo, my gaze sweeping over his artfully sickly face. Leo, you say you're dying, but you look pretty good today. A little pale, sure, but you're speaking clearly. Tell you what, why don't you lie down on the floor and cough up some blood for me? How else am I supposed to believe you're at death's door and need my money to save you? Leo's face went from white to a sickly green. He was so flustered he almost dropped his invalid act, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Ethan Hayes, you bastard. Chloe, ever the protective sister, jumped in front of Leo, her voice shrill. You're just making things difficult. You don't want to pay. I'm telling you, if anything happens to Leo, I'll haunt you for the rest of your life. Don't worry, I said breezily. He'll definitely outlive you. I ignored her, turning to grab my tablet from the bedside table. With a few quick swipes, I pulled up the encrypted file. Then, I turned the screen toward them. On it were Leo's visit records from various private clinics, the time-stamped results of his blood tests, and a side-by-side comparison with his end-stage renal disease diagnosis. Leo, my voice turned cold as ice. Do you need me to remind you what the doctor said last month when you were being treated for a minor liver function abnormality? Or should I just send all this private information to the press? Let everyone see how you faked a terminal illness to scam money, and how you played your dear sister for a fool. Leo's eyes widened in horror. All the color drained from his face, leaving it a shade of white far more convincing than his act. He stared at the screen, his lips trembling, unable to speak. Chloe saw it too. At first, she looked confused. Then, as understanding dawned, she whipped her head around to stare at Leo, her eyes filled with shock and disbelief. Leo? What? What is this? Is what he's saying? Is it true? Your illness? Chloe, it's not. He faked it. Ethan forged those documents. Leo desperately grabbed her arm, his words tumbling out in a panic as sweat beaded on his forehead. Forged? I sneered. You want me to call the clinics right now and have them verify? Leo fell silent, his hand clutching Chloe's, trembling. Chloe looked at his face, at the guilt written all over it, and even she couldn't deny it any longer. The anger drained from her expression, replaced by a ghastly white. A look of profound absurdity crossed her features, followed by the burning shame and fury of being played for a fool. She violently shook off his hand, her voice trembling. You lied to me. Chloe, listen to me, I can explain. Leo tried to grab her again. Get away from me. Chloe recoiled as if he were something filthy. She shot me a complex look, a mix of shock, lingering anger, and the dizzying confusion of someone whose entire world has just been shattered. She didn't say another word. Without a second glance at Leo, she turned and practically stumbled out of the room. Chloe! Leo called after her in a panic. He started to follow, then hesitated, glancing back at the evidence I held in my hands. He froze, his face ashen. With one last hateful glare in my direction, he finally stomped his foot and ran after her. The room was quiet again. The only thing left was the lingering stench of their pathetic, melodramatic soap opera. I tossed the tablet aside and walked to the window. Down below, I could just make out two figures, pulling and pushing at each other. A cold smile touched my lips. The drama downstairs ended with Chloe shaking Leo off, hailing a cab, and speeding away. Leo chased the car for a few feet before collapsing onto a planter by the hospital entrance like a spineless dog, burying his head in his hands as passers-by stared. Pathetic. I closed the blinds, shutting out the disgusting scene. My phone vibrated. It was Marcus. Mr. Hayes, his voice was tight. I found something. Leo Vance is indeed registered for a kidney transplant at a private hospital, but the donor's information is under a high-level encryption. I can't access it yet. Also, one of Caleb Hayes' shell corporations has had frequent, large-scale financial transactions with a major shareholder of that same hospital. Encrypted? Caleb? My eyes narrowed. So it wasn't just a rumor. Can you break the encryption? It will take time, and it's risky, Marcus said cautiously. The security is extremely tight. Keep an eye on it, I instructed, and keep a close watch on Caleb. Also, find out where Chloe is now. Ms. Vance went back to the apartment she shares with her brother, but she left again a few minutes later, driving west towards the old family estate. She seemed highly agitated. West, towards the Hayes mansion, running to her protector, or something else. Understood. I hung up. My mind raced. Leo's new kidney was almost certainly Caleb's doing. His goal was probably to solidify his control over Chloe, or to use the situation to squeeze more out of me, or both. As for Chloe, now that she knew she'd been deceived, she was like a cornered animal. But she was a survivor. She wouldn't just accept being made a fool of, and she certainly wouldn't accept losing the lifestyle she had. She was going to do something, and I needed to make sure that when she lashed out, she aimed her fire in the right direction. After a moment's thought, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I had almost forgotten, the private investigator the original Ethan had hired. It seemed he wasn't a complete idiot after all. I sent a text, along with Chloe's email address. Send everything you found to this address. Anonymously. Let her see for herself what kind of man she'd sacrificed everything for. By the time I was done, the sky outside was completely dark. The city lights burned brighter, but they offered no warmth. The next morning, I was jolted awake by a frantic ringing. It was the hospital's front desk. Mr. Hayes, there's a Ms. Chloe Vance downstairs demanding to see you. We can't stop her. She's extremely distraught. Before I could reply, I heard Chloe's shrill, hysterical screaming in the background, getting closer. Ethan Hayes, get down here. You'll rot in hell. You set me up. You'll rot in hell. The sound of security guards trying to restrain her was audible. Here we go again. I hung up without a word. A few minutes later, the door to my room was thrown open. Chloe stood there, hair disheveled, eyes swollen like walnuts, her makeup smeared. The Chanel suit was wrinkled and stained. The aloof, sophisticated woman was gone, replaced by a wild-eyed mess. She had pushed past the guards and stormed in. 2 security guards followed her, looking apologetic and stressed. Mr. Hayes, we're sorry we couldn't. It's fine. You can go. I'll wave them off. The guards looked relieved and quickly backed out, closing the door behind them. Chloe stood in the middle of the room, her chest heaving, her eyes locked on me with a look of pure, murderous hatred. Ethan Hayes. Her voice was a raw, choked sob, thick with rage. It was you. You sent me that stuff, didn't you? You knew all along. You watched me run around like an idiot, being played by him. You watched me fight with you for him. You were just sitting back, enjoying the show. You must be so proud of yourself. She was screaming hysterically, waving her arms like a madwoman. The private investigator's files had clearly been a bombshell. Not just the fake medical records, but probably evidence of Leo's other indiscretions. Other women, how he'd squandered her money. What show? I leaned back against the pillows, my voice calm. The one where you prove you're the most gullible person on the planet? Yeah, that was pretty entertaining. You. She was trembling with fury. She snatched the water glass from the bedside table and raised it to throw. My eyes turned to ice. Go ahead. Let's see what's faster, you throwing that glass, or me calling the cops. Her hand froze in midair. The glass slipped from her fingers and crashed to the floor, water splashing everywhere. As if all her strength had vanished, she collapsed to the ground and buried her face in her hands, letting out a torrent of heartbroken sobs. Why? Why would you do this to me? I loved him so much. I did everything for him. How could he lie to me? She cried with genuine, gut-wrenching pain. Unfortunately for her, I felt nothing. In fact, I almost wanted to laugh. Love. I scoffed. What did you love about him? His convincing sick act? His talent for manipulation? Or did you love how he helped you plot against me and use me like a personal ATM? Her sobs hitched. She looked up, her tear-streaked face a mess of emotions. Hatred, shame, and a flicker of confusion. You were the same. She mumbled, as if grasping at a lifeline. You used to do whatever I said. None of you men are any good. You're right. I was a fool. I admitted freely. And then I woke up. What about you? Are you going to keep playing the fool? Keep letting him lie to you, letting Caleb Hayes use you as his pawn. At the mention of Caleb's name, Chloe's eyes widened with a flicker of fear. You? How do you know about Caleb? I know a lot more than you think. I looked down at her, as if she were a piece of trash. Chloe, I'm going to give you a way out. She looked up at me, instinctively. Leo's new kidney donor is a scam cooked up by Caleb. You can figure out why. My voice was low, but every word was a steel pellet. You have 2 choices. 1, you can stick with Leo and Caleb, let them squeeze every last drop of value out of you, and then throw you away like a dirty rag. Chloe's face grew even paler. Or 2, I paused. You can tell me everything you know, Every dirty little secret Leo and Caleb have. In return, I might consider making sure your landing isn't quite so ugly. Her pupils dilated, her lips trembling. You want to go after Caleb? You can't win. The Hayes family will crush you. That's my problem, I said coldly. You just have to choose. Go down with her sinking ship, or grab onto the rope I'm throwing you. She sat on the floor, a war raging in her eyes. Her face was a wreck, tear-stained and pathetic. But I knew that at her core, this woman was pure self-interest. The moment she realized her ship was sinking, she jumped to the next one without a second thought. The seconds ticked by. Finally, she took a deep, shuddering breath, as if making a decision. Her voice was raspy. Leo. He secretly recorded some of his phone calls with Caleb. And there was one time, Caleb told him to drug me, so he could get something on me. I think it's all on a flash drive. Bingo. When dogs fight, they bite. I looked at her, my face a mask. Where is it? The drive? Chloe's eyes darted away, her voice still hoarse from crying. It's probably in one of his hiding places. They're the hidden compartment in his desk drawer, or maybe under his pillow. She spoke in a whisper, as if handing over this information was both a humiliation and a terror. Be more specific. I had no patience for guessing games. I only saw him open the compartment once. Chloe struggled to remember, twisting the fabric of her suit. It's the second drawer on the right side of his desk, all the way in the back. You have to press down hard, and a false bottom pops up. That was enough. I pulled out a burner phone, dialed the private investigator, and put on speaker. I have a job for you. Sending you an address now. Target is Leo Vance. I need a flash drive. Check the second drawer on the right side of his desk, hidden compartment in the back. Also check under his pillow. Be quick and be clean. Understood, the voice on the other end replied, crisp and professional. I hung up. Chloe stared at me, aghast. She clearly hadn't expected me to act so quickly. So ruthlessly. What? I raised an eyebrow. Did you expect me to go over there and steal it myself? She was speechless. She looked down, her shoulders trembling. A strange silence filled the room, punctuated only by Chloe's suppressed sobs. The wait wasn't long, but every second felt stretched. About 40 minutes later, the burner phone lit up with a new text message. Got it. There's a lot here. Involves Caleb, Chloe, and you. What are your instructions? Fast work. I replied. Make a copy. Find a way to put the original back where you found it without him knowing. Send me the copy immediately. Okay. A few minutes later, an encrypted zip file of audio recordings arrived. I clicked on the first one. First came Leo's pathetic, weak voice. Caleb, I don't think Chloe's buying it anymore. Ethan seems suspicious. About the kidney. Then, Caleb's trademark sneer. What are you worried about? That stupid bitch is easy to handle. You just keep playing sick. If you need more money, tell her your condition is getting worse and you need some new experimental drug. As for Ethan, he can't even save himself. Dad has completely written him off. Once I'm done sucking that pathetic little company of his dry, he'll be sleeping on the street. But, no buts. I ask you to do one simple thing. I told you to drug her, get some pictures, get some leverage on her. What happened? You're useless. That time, she threw up. It didn't work. Useless. The audio captured Caleb's angry curses and Leo's meek, terrified replies. The other recordings were even more damning. There were conversations where Caleb instructed Leo on how to get company secrets from Chloe, how to fake invoices to embezzle funds, and even a discussion about how they would split Ethan's assets after his accidental death. In their conversations, Chloe was nothing more than a fool, a pawn to be manipulated and sacrificed at a moment's notice. I listened with a blank expression. Beside me, Chloe's face grew paler and paler, her body shaking like a leaf in a storm. When the last recording finished, I looked at her, her face a mask of colorless despair. Did you hear all that? I asked. That's the man you loved with all your heart, and the family you thought you could rely on. Chloe's head snapped up. Her eyes were a vortex of utter collapse and the wild fury of a cornered animal. How could they? Bastards. They're all bastards, she shrieked, tears and snot streaming down her face, all pretense of dignity gone. After a moment of pure rage, she seemed to remember something. She scrambled towards me and grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my flesh, her eyes blazing with a desperate, feverish plea. Ethan, you have to help me. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. They tricked me. I love you, Ethan. It was always supposed to be us. Forgive me. We can team up. We can take them down together. We can destroy them. I disgustedly shook her hand off me. Team up? With you? You're not worthy. She froze, the desperate hope on her face crumbling into gray despair. Chloe, I looked at her coldly. You have only one use to me now. She stared at me, uncomprehending. Go back to Leo and Caleb. I said each word slowly and deliberately. Pretend nothing happened. Pretend you're still the same clueless idiot, worried about saving your precious brother. Whatever they tell you to do, you do it. And then you report every single thing they have you do back to me. You want me to be a spy, she whispered, her voice trembling. What other choice do you have? I gave her a humorless smile. You can walk out that door right now. Go tell Caleb and Leo you have incriminating evidence on them. Let's see what happens. Do you think they'll share their fortune with you? Or will they arrange for you to have an unfortunate accident? A violent shudder ran through her. She knew, as well as I did, what the answer was. She had no choice. She never did. She slumped, all the fight gone out of her, as if her bones had turned to dust. I understand, she mumbled, utterly defeated. Now get out. I picked up my tablet, no longer looking at her. And remember, your life is in my hands now. If I find out you're playing games, I let the threat hang in the air. She shakily got to her feet. Without another look at me, she stumbled out of the room, a pathetic, broken figure. The door closed. I opened the stock market app. Aperture Innovations was still flatlining at the bottom, but not for long. I picked up my phone and called Marcus. Marcus, that evidence you were collecting, all the proof of Leo's embezzlement and Caleb's involvement. How's it coming along? It's all there, Mr. Hayes. The wire transfers, the fake contracts, witness statements. It's a solid case. Good. I looked at the sea of red on the screen. Tomorrow, when the market opens, use the trust fund money. Start buying. Buy everything. Mr. Hayes, that volume. Just do it. I hung up and leaned back against the pillows. A storm was coming, and this time, I was the one in control. 3 days later, I was out of the hospital gown, dressed in a simple black shirt and slacks, standing before the floor-to-ceiling window of a private hospital's VIP suite. Below, the hospital garden was a lush green, a few patients being pushed in wheelchairs by orderlies. A peaceful scene, but beneath that peace, the currents were churning. Marcus Thorne stood behind me, holding a tablet, his voice steady as he delivered his report. Mr. Hayes, we have acquired 17.3% of all publicly traded shares, combined with your original 31%, and the 8% we bought at a premium from several minority shareholders. We now control over 56% of Aperture Innovations. We have absolute majority. Any movement from Caleb or Chloe? I asked, my eyes still on the scene below. Caleb seems to have noticed someone is buying up stock. He's tried to rally funds to stabilize the price, but his personal cash flow is limited. It's a drop in the bucket. As for Ms. Vance, as you instructed, she gave Caleb the passwords to several of the company's emergency reserve accounts yesterday. He transferred the money out to try and boost the stock price, but we absorbed it all. Marcus's voice held a trace of admiration. And Leo, he's still in the hospital, claiming his condition has worsened and he needs complete rest. But our sources say he's extremely agitated. He's tried to contact Ms. Vance and Caleb multiple times, but it seems he's been cut loose. A loose end. How predictable. I turned around. The media? All arranged. Several major financial news outlets and online influencers have received the materials we sent them anonymously. They're just waiting for your signal. I nodded, walked to the coffee table, and picked up a thick file, a hard copy of the complete evidence against Leo and Caleb, detailing the fake illness and the corporate embezzlement. I weighed it in my hand. Let's go, I said. It's time for a meeting. 30 minutes later, in the main conference room at Aperture Innovations. The long table was surrounded by anxious company executives and a few equally grim-faced minority shareholders. A nervous buzz of whispers filled the room. The chairman's seat was empty. In the acting CEO's chair next to it, Chloe sat on edge, her face pale, her eyes darting nervously towards the door. Across from her, Caleb was slouched in his chair, fiddling with a Zippo lighter, trying to look bored. But the frequent glances at his watch betrayed his impatience and a hint of unease. Is Ethan even coming? A portly shareholder complained. What's the point of keeping us waiting like this? Exactly. The company's stock is in the toilet, and he has the nerve to act like a king. Chloe, you're in charge, aren't you? What's going on? Chloe flinched under the questioning, stammering, unable to form a coherent sentence. Caleb snapped his lighter shut with a sharp click. My guess is my dear brother doesn't have the guts to show his face, he sneered. He ran this company into the ground. He's probably hiding in a hole somewhere. The conference room doors were thrown open. All sound ceased. With Marcus at my side, I strode into the room, walked directly to the head of the table, pulled out the chairman's guts to show his face, he sneered. He ran this company into the ground. He's probably hiding in a hole somewhere. The conference room doors were thrown open. All sound ceased. With Marcus at my side, I strode into the room, walked directly to the head of the table, pulled out the chairman's chair, and sat down. Marcus stood silently beside me, placing the thick file on the table in front of me. You could have heard a pin drop. All eyes were on me, a mixture of shock, suspicion, and anxiety. Chloe immediately looked down, unable to meet my gaze. The sneer on Caleb's face froze. He slowly sat up straighter, his eyes narrowing. Is everyone here? I scanned the room, my voice calm. Then let's begin. Ethan Hayes. Caleb was the first to speak, slamming his hand on the table. Who do you think you are putting on this show? This isn't your... I cut him off without a glance, addressing the room. I've called this meeting to address two things. First, I picked up the file and handed it to Marcus. Mr. Thorne, please distribute copies of this to all shareholders and department heads. Marcus took the file and began passing out the copies to the stunned executives. A rustle of paper filled the room. Soon it was followed by gasps, sharp intakes of breath, and a rising murmur of disbelief. What? What is this? Falsified medical records? Embezzlement? The amount of money? And it involves Caleb Hayes. Leo Vance. I thought he was on his deathbed. Caleb snatched the copy from Marcus's hand. He only needed to scan the first few pages before his face turned a dark, mottled red. He slammed the file down on the table and pointed a trembling finger at me. Ethan Hayes, you forged this. You're trying to frame me. Whether it's forged or not is for the FBI and the courts to decide. I said coolly, my gaze shifting to Chloe, who looked so pale she might faint. Acting CEO Vance, a lot of these transactions have your signature on them. Is there anything you'd like to say? Chloe flinched, looking up at me with terror and a silent plea in her eyes. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't speak. The second matter. I didn't wait for her response, my voice rising slightly to command the room's attention. Given the current situation and my personal holdings of over 56% of this company's stock. I paused, my eyes sweeping over Caleb's twisted expression and Chloe's look of utter despair. I'm announcing the immediate termination of Chloe Vance from all positions at this company. Effective immediately, all contracts and business dealings with any enterprise owned or operated by Caleb Hayes are terminated, and we will be pursuing full legal damages. And effective immediately, I am personally assuming all executive responsibilities of this company. The three announcements landed like hammer blows, leaving the room reeling. Ethan Hayes, you wouldn't dare. Caleb shot to his feet, a vein throbbing in his forehead. On what grounds? Dad won't let you get away with this. I'll speak to Mr. Hayes myself, I said, my eyes cold. As for you, Caleb, you should probably start thinking about how you're going to explain those wire transfers to the police. I picked up a remote and turned on the conference room's large projector screen. All right, I almost forgot to tell you all. I tapped my phone. The screen flickered to life, showing a live feed from a local financial news network. The anchor was speaking in a grave tone. We have just received breaking news. A former executive at Aperture Innovations, Leo Vance, is under investigation for large-scale corporate embezzlement and fraud. His business associate, Caleb Hayes, may be implicated as a co-conspirator. Police are currently investigating. In response to this news, Aperture stock has staged a stunning reversal, hitting the limit up for the day. At the bottom of the screen, pixelated photos of Leo and Caleb scrolled by, alongside sensational headlines like corporate scandal rocks tech world and stock soars after shakeup. The room was deathly silent. Everyone was shell-shocked by the 1-2 punch of the news. The stock, limit up? One moment it was in a free fall, the next it was skyrocketing. The shareholders who had been complaining just moments ago were now staring at the screen, their mouths agape, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and dawning ecstasy. Caleb stared at the screen, then whipped his head back to look at me. His eyes were wide with shock, which quickly morphed into pure, unadulterated rage and a flicker of fear. It was as if he was seeing his big brother for the very first time. Chloe had gone completely limp in her chair, her eyes vacant, as if her soul had fled her body. I turned off the projector and stood up, placing my hands on the table and leaning forward, surveying the sea of stunned faces. Meeting adjourned. My gaze finally rested on the ashen-faced Caleb and the utterly broken Chloe. Good luck to you all. The conference room remained silent for a full 10 seconds. Then it was like throwing water on a grease fire. It exploded. Limit up? It really hit the limit. That news report. Oh my God. Mr. Hayes. What? What just happened? The worried expressions on the minority shareholders' faces have been replaced by sheer, unadulterated joy. They looked at me now with a newfound reverence and awe. The portly man who had been the most vocal critic was now rubbing his hands together, a sycophantic grin on his face, wanting to approach but not daring to. Caleb violently kicked his chair back. It slammed against the wall with a loud crack. His face was livid, his fingers shaking as he pointed at me, his voice distorted with rage. "Ethan Hayes, you set me up. This was your plan all along, wasn't it?" He looked like a cornered animal, his eyes bloodshot, ready to lunge. "Set you up." I straightened up, calmly adjusting my cuffs. "You're the one who took a crap in your own backyard. Don't blame me for cleaning it up." "Bullshit." Caleb had lost all composure, screaming now. "It's all fake. You forged everything. Dad will never believe you. The Hayes family will crush you." "The Hayes family?" I gave a small, mocking laugh. "Right now, the Hayes family is probably trying to figure out how to cut ties with you so your stench doesn't rub off on them." I turned to the ecstatic shareholders. "Gentlemen, any further matters regarding the company's restructuring and legal actions will be handled by Mr. Thorne. For now, if you'll excuse us, I have a family matter to attend to." The shareholders, understanding the cue, practically tripped over themselves to leave, nodding and scraping as they went, making sure to close the door behind them. Soon, the only people left in the room were me, Marcus, a deathly pale Caleb, and a catatonic Chloe. The moment the door closed, Caleb's venomous gaze snapped to Chloe. "You. It was you, wasn't it, you bitch? You sold me out. You gave him everything." Chloe flinched at his roar, shaking her head in terror, tears and snot smearing her face. "No, Caleb, it wasn't me. I didn't know." "If it wasn't you, then who was it?" Caleb lunged, grabbing a fistful of her hair and yanking her from her chair. "You backstabbing whore. I'll kill you." Chloe let out a piercing scream, struggling uselessly. Marcus frowned and took a step forward. I held up a hand to stop him, watching the ugly spectacle with cold detachment. "Caleb," I said, my voice quiet but sharp enough to make him freeze. "The police should be here any minute. Do you really want to add assault to your list of charges?" Caleb was breathing heavily, his eyes red, but the hand clutching Chloe's hair loosened its grip. Chloe collapsed to the floor, sobbing and clutching her scalp. Just then, a series of firm, rhythmic footsteps approached, followed by a sharp knock on the door. "NYPD, Financial Crimes. We have a warrant. Please cooperate." The last bit of color drained from Caleb's face. He stumbled backward, bumping into the conference table. His Zippo lighter slipped from his pocket and fell silently onto the thick carpet. Marcus opened the door. Several plainclothes detectives stood in the doorway, their faces grim.